Hello and welcome to this special print live. The time is right now 8:15 in the evening, and today we are discussing about the joint press conference. The joint press conference in which the Army, the Air Force, and the Indian Navy came together and addressed the media, in a sense, addressed the country. The big takeaways from this joint press conference was the fact that the three military officers made it absolutely clear that India is on high alert and is committed to peace. At the same time, they've also mentioned that they are ready to thwart any evil designs of the enemy, or in other words, of Pakistan. And at the same time, they've also refuted the lies put out by the Pakistan establishment, by the Pakistani military, in which they claimed that they did not use the F-16s. Today, it was conclusively proven. They have gone ahead and shown a missile that can only be fired from an F-16, which has been recovered from the Indian soil, which confirms to the fact that Pakistan used F-16s to intrude into the Indian territory yesterday, that is on the 27th of Feb, and try and target 4 military installations. At the same time, the Pakistan Air Force the Pakistani DG ISPR had gone ahead and claimed that they did not use an F-16. Also, they had also claimed that they did not lose a fighter aircraft. Now the Indian military has gone ahead and has come on record that yes, the Indian Air Force Wing Commander Abhinandan was able to shoot down an F-16 fighter jet. Remember that this is one of the rarest of the rarest in which, and this is the first time, that's what I've been told, when an F-16 fighter jet manufactured by the Lockheed Martin of the US has been shot down by 1960s vintage MiG-21 Bison, which is a Russian aircraft. So please do send in your questions, whatever that you have, and I'll try and answer as many questions as I can. Well, one question that has been asked is by Kaushik Mahadevan. He's asking, what is your opinion on the freedom given to the service officers to address the press? Well, Mahadevan, this is not the first time that the service personnel have addressed the media. Remember that at various levels, right from the colonel itself, a commanding officer, to right from the army chief himself, they have interacted with media in the past. They come on record, they speak freely to the media, but yes, they speak in a limited manner. And today was also no exception. You had the 2 stars from the Indian Air Force, the Indian Navy, as well as the Indian Army addressing the media. And when I say addressing the media, remember that the intent of these officers is not to speak to the media. The intent of these officers is to address the countrymen, which includes you and me, and media is just a medium that is able to bridge, acts as a bridge between the country and the establishment. I have a question which is coming in from Bonnie, and who's asking, did their payloads land in near our military compounds? Did they detonate? Well, it was around 9:30 in the morning yesterday when the Indian Air Force radars picked up a heavy package, a large package of Pakistani fighter jets, which consisted of the the JF-17s, which is a Pak Chinese-made aircraft, the fighter jet, along with the Mirages that they have, and the F-16. It was around 10 o'clock, in the morning when 3 F-16s crossed over from the LOC in the Naushera sector. They entered about 7 kilometers inside the LC, and they targeted 4 military installations. And these 4 military installations included the brigade headquarters as well as the battalion headquarters, along with an ammunition point. Now, ammunition point is a technical term used by the army, which for common understanding, an ammunition point is also an ammunition dump. So 4 locations were targeted by the F-16s, but however, given the fact that the Indian Army, along with the air defense, had retaliated, and they also operating the Indian fighters, they were not able to attack pinpointedly. Yes, they fired missiles, and today you have a example where the Indian military went ahead and showed fragments of the missile that was fired, a missile that can only be fired from an F-16 and not from any other aircraft that the Pakistan operates. Because remember that Pakistan had claimed that it was not an F-16 but a JF-17 that was used, and this particular missile could not have been fired from the JF-17. So yes, they did target, but however, it was an unsuccessful attempt. I have a question coming in from Pratik Garg. What do you think will be a good narrative that will help the Modi government save face in terms of elections and not escalate the situation? Well, to be fair, I'll not like to get into the politics of it or the election of it, but to be fair, it was not India which escalated the situation. It was Pakistan military which escalated the situation by sending in fighter jets across the LOC to target military installations. I like to draw a difference between the airstrikes carried by the Indian Air Force and the Pakistani fighter jets. On 26th of February, we had 5 Mirage 2000 fighter jets enter the Pakistan airspace and target the biggest training camp of the Jaish-e-Mohammed in Balakot sector of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Now, India had made it absolutely clear that this was a non-military preemptive strike, and what they meant by non-military is the fact that the target in this particular case was a non-military target, and it was also not a civilian target. This was what the Indian Air Force had targeted was a Jaish-e-Mohammed training camp based on pinpointed intelligence. So, the Indians had made it clear on that day itself, we couldn't have targeted any military installations because that would have amounted to, a declaration of a war, because that is an act of war in which you target a military installation. Whereas yesterday, when the Pakistani fighter jets entered the Indian airspace 7 kilometers inside the LOC, they specifically targeted military installations. So that is the basic difference between the two airstrikes. What we did was a defensive strike, in the sense that because we had intelligence that there were Fidains or suicide attack terrorists who were being trained at this particular location, and the Jaish-e-Mohammed was planning to carry out more Pulwama such attacks across the country, and that is why we carried out a preemptive strike. In the case of Pakistan, this was an offensive strike targeting the military installations. Our question coming in from Saksham Srivastav. He's asking, what is the solution of the problem with Pakistan if it continues to refute the existence of terror camps on its territory? Non-violent solutions don't seem possible. Where over the last decade or so, India has been ramping up multiple pressures on Pakistan, both on the diplomatic as well as the military front. Remember that immediately after 26/11, the Indian military had given the option to the government to go in for a strike. At that time, the government chose to not to go in for a strike, but at the same time, they had started piling up diplomatic pressure on Pakistan. This is exactly what is happening right now also. The Indian government is following two trajectories as far as Pakistan is concerned. One, they're working on the isolation of Pakistan on the diplomatic front. For example, if you would have noticed that after the airstrikes on the 26th of February, not one country went ahead and condemned it. On the other hand, you had countries like France, Australia and others which actually supported India's stand and India's action. Even Pakistan's all-time friend, they call it the all-weather friend, China, did not condemn the strike, but they called for restraint. So on the diplomatic front, India has been able to achieve success because there is a growing realization in the world that Pakistan continues to be the net exporter of terror, not only against India, but also a net exporter of terror in the region. And this is something that we are working on. You also, remember that it's not India which is saying it alone. You have Pakistan's 3 neighbors, that is Iran, Afghanistan and India, are continuing to stress the point that Pakistan harbors, finances, promotes and trains terrorists on its soil. I have a question coming in from Diljit Singh. Pakistan claimed of not using F-16, but unlike India, didn't disclose aircraft used. Does it nail Pakistan lie? Of course it nails Pakistan lie. There is no doubt about it. We also have videographic evidence showing that a Pakistani fighter plane was hit. It is believed to have been a trainer aircraft, a trainer F-16 aircraft, because the Indian Army post saw 2 pilots ejecting from the aircraft. So there can be only 2 pilots in case it's a trainer aircraft. And at the same time today, if you would have seen, the print has also, and along with me, I've tweeted out the pictures of this Pakistani missile that was used. And remember that they had claimed it was a JF-17 that was used, but this missile can only be fired from the F-16 and not from the JF-17 aircraft. So yes, whatever evidence India has put out, it goes ahead and smashes every single lie as far as Pakistan is concerned, where they claim that they didn't use the F-16 and neither did they lose a fighter aircraft. I have a question coming in from Arun. Now that we are complaining use of F-16 by Pak with proof, what action can US take on Pak? Any specific conventions or procedures to Pak misuse of F-16s? Well, this is where it gets tricky, because one will really have to be sure. Remember that it was the US which gave Pak the F-16s initially, but they have gone ahead and procured the F-16s from other countries also. The aircrafts that came with the US came with a clause that they cannot use the F-16s for offensive role. They can only use it for defensive. Whereas in this particular operation, what the Pakistan did was an offensive action where they targeted Indian military installations. So one will really have to be sure whether the F-16 that was downed by India was really the one that the US supplied or the ones that they procured from other countries. Sadly, the F-16 were trying to get back into the territory, and the MiG-21 Bison fired it from behind. It hit the aircraft, and since the aircraft was on a forward trajectory, it fell into Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So we really don't have evidence to prove the F-16, the use of F-16 other than the missile that was fired on the Indian installations. I have a question coming in from Rishi Venkatesh. Is asking, will India go to war with Pakistan after getting the IF pilot back? Today I was at a briefing by top sources of the Indian government, and they have made it absolutely clear that it is Pakistan which is indulging in warmongering. It is Pakistan which is trying to create a war psychosis. Now let's take some of the facts into consideration. Pakistan went ahead and closed down its airspace, not allowing any foreign airline to use this particular airspace. Did India do so? No, India did not. There have been a number of tweets which have come out from Pakistan claiming that India had sent ships to Karachi, whereas the fact of the ground is that nothing of that sort happened. In Lahore and Karachi, there was a complete blackout by Pakistan, fearing that India would strike. So India is of the opinion that as far as India is concerned, the military is on a heightened alert. Every step has been taken to ensure that in case if Pakistan attempts a misadventure, it is replied back in the same coin or maybe on a larger scale. So yes, you have the Air Force, the Navy and the Indian Army on a high alert, but yes, they are not warmongering. And the last question that I'm getting is from Rahul, who's asking, what now? Well, Rahul, what now is a question that will, remember that I had mentioned earlier that it was Pakistan which has escalated the whole situation. Now it is up to Pakistan to de-escalate now. How do they de-escalate? First, you had to hand over Wing Commander Abhinandan, which they are doing. The second, and the Indian government is absolutely clear on this, that Pakistan has to take verifiable, sincere action, strong action against terror safe havens, in the sense that they will have to take actions against terror camps and training camps operating from its soil. It's only when these actions are verified is when India and Pakistan could probably sit down and have a talk. Thank you so much for logging into this print live at this time of the day. Do log in tomorrow, and we'll try, either I or any of my colleague will pick up the latest, the biggest news of the day, and we'll try and answer